Yesterday was such a good day. I hope that it was hugely transformative for you. If you are at all behind, all good. Watch today and then just go back and catch up on the days that you missed. They are not long. They are usually about 5 to 10 minutes each. So it's easy to do, but it's also easy not to do. And I promise you, it will probably change your life. And anybody that was on yesterday, raise your hand. Did you shed some tears? Did it change your outlook on certain things? How are you feeling headed into day 14? Today is going to be a huge contrast from yesterday. Yesterday, we talked about lucky girl syndrome. Today, we are talking about your villain era. Think of your favorite villain. It can be a Disney villain. It can be like a sexy, I don't know, something like an Angelina Jolie style. Like, you know that movie Wanted? Did you ever see that with James McAvoy and Angelina? Like, I think of that. It can be whatever you want. It can be whatever you want. What characteristics does that person have that you are so drawn to that you're like, why? Probably that they give no Fs and they just march to the beat of their own drum. That, in short, is your villain era. So today, you are going to enter your villain era. The premise of your villain era is that you are unapologetically you. You march to the beat of your own drum, you walk taller, you are more confident, and you prioritize yourself. You set boundaries. You don't let people walk all over and you don't do what people want you to do just because that's how their day is looking. And you are like this person that just sets everything aside and you're like, yes, master, I will do whatever you want. No, be a villain. Be a villain. It feels freaking good. So let's talk about boundaries. What are some boundaries that you know that if you were a villain, you would have set by now? What is something you need to do? Maybe you don't answer the phone so much when certain people call. Maybe you don't jump when someone says, maybe you don't say how high when someone says jump. Who in your life, you don't have to put in the chat if you don't want to be outed. You don't, but just, you can think about it. But by all means, if you want to be full savage and full villain, you can totally drop it in the chat. By the way, the live chat goes away as soon as we're done. So who in your life drains you? We're diving right into it. We're going to get sassy. Who drains you? Who lifts you up? So it's very, very different. If there's certain people that drain you, let's set some boundaries. If there are certain people that lift you up, then how about we make more space for that? In terms of your values, things that you're to your core, like what you believe in, where do you feel like you compromise sometimes? That's a big one. And your happiness, how can you better protect your peace? Where are you not protecting your peace right now? If you were a villain, how would you protect your peace? I mean, I am villaining quite well right now. I protect my peace by having a gate and living in the middle of freaking nowhere. I might as well be Dr. Doofenshmirtz. Do you guys even know who that is? If you do, you're my people. Dr. Doofenshmirtz would have a place like this in the middle of nowhere with a gatinator. I wish I could do his voice. One really cool thing, by the way, that other than boundaries when you're thinking about your villain era is your aesthetic. If you were a villain that is so confident, that's one thing. If you think about it, every villain is always extremely confident. They don't lack confidence. They are like, this is me and you're going to deal with it. Like I think of Ursula with like her bubbies and like, I am who I am, deal with it. So what would you wear? And I don't mean, it doesn't have to be like a black trench coat. Like what if you were a villain and you were confident, how would you dress? What would you wear? I would probably wear heels more, but I'm always self-conscious that I'm so tall. I also walk, I don't walk very well in them, but truth, if I was a villain, she'd be in heels because she wouldn't give a dang about how tall she is. What would you wear? What would you eat? What would you feel about your body? What would your house look like? They're cool question. How would you decorate your house? And one thing to note, like if you can start living in your villain era with the villain aesthetic, what power do you feel like you have? Like what confidence is coming through, and what, I guess power would be the right word, do you feel like you possess and hold when you live with that aesthetic? Fun game, right? All right, this is our final part of your villain era. I'm going to give you basically a cheat sheet to be able to follow. Step 1, boundaries. Boundaries, babe. Relationships. So we touched on this. Hopefully it jogged your memory on like something. Maybe it didn't have to jog your memory. You're like, boom, this person needs to be cut out. And by the way, we don't have to cut people out. We call it airplane mode. You can just airplane mode it. You don't need to respond right away. You can prioritize you. You don't have to cut people out. That's like, that might drive more anxiety. But if you were a villain, who is draining you? These are my favorite examples. Is it Aunt Millie from the farm? Is it Cousin Angus that wants you to sing songs with them? I'm totally giving fake examples right now, obviously, but I just thought it would be funny. Who lifts you up? Your best friend, your mom, your husband, your dog? Like, what does that look like? What values are being compromised? So let's really think boundaries. Like, which of your things that you value to your core are being compromised? A peaceful household, quality time with your family, creative time with yourself, quiet time. Just where are you compromising? And the last thing with boundaries of like the step one is that happiness that we talked about. So say no more often, answer less, airplane mode it. Set expectations with people too. One thing my mom taught me this, it's called a precedent. When you set a precedent, it can go one of two ways. You can either say yes often and people then expect that of you, or they will then understand your boundaries. When you start to say no, they're gonna be like, well, Angie's not gonna want to come to that. Like a 2-year-old's birthday party. I'm not going to get invited to every single 2-year-old's birthday party in my family. They know Angie and Andre are probably not going to come to the 2-year-old's birthday party. And that is a boundary that we set. If our little niece or nephew has one, sure, yes. But everything else, you just start to set precedents and then it's expected of you. So it can go either way. It can be a good precedent or a bad precedent. And you're doing it to yourself. So try and set the right precedents for your villain era. That's step one. Step two, your villain aesthetic, like we talked about. Who's the character that you look up to? How do they dress? How do you want to dress? What would you change? What does your house look like? And the power that holds, like, what does that feel like? What does your house smell like? Like what, just all of that stuff. Like what is the aesthetic of your top tier villain? What does your pet look like? Are they a menace to society? What can you toss away also, like cleaning out your house and purging of all excess? If you think about most villains, they have like a very clean house. They really do. It's very tidy. I'm trying to think of like, maybe not Madame Mim or who is the chick? She's the worst. And she's not cute at all. She is not a good example of villain era. Who's the chick in Rescuers? Not Down Under, the other one. And she's with the eyelashes. No, we're talking Cruella. Minus the puppies. We're talking Cruella. We're talking Ursula. We're talking Maleficent. Maleficent is so hot. We're talking the girls from The Craft. We're talking... I'm trying to think of like really good villains. You know what I mean? So think of like that type of energy. So what does that type of house and space look like when you're in your villain era? Step 3, you first. So how can you prioritize yourself? How can you prioritize your future? How can you prioritize your habits? If you're not making time for your workouts and your family and the things that you love and eating clean, are you giving your time to other stuff? Like, are you on the phone with a toxic friend an hour a day? Think about that. Like, seriously, where is your time going and what can you start saying no to, even if you're going to hurt people's feelings? Because you're letting your life wash away just to uphold someone else's expectations. So where can you start saying no? This is fun, right? Step 4, my favorite step. Get your ish together. What will you be able to possibly eliminate moving forward? What can you start saying no to? What will you make more time for? What standards will you set and not dip below? Said this when we first started this journey. If it does not raise the number in your bank account or your internal vibration of freaking happiness, you say no. Say no. If you don't like it and you don't want to do it, it doesn't matter. The person demanding this of you, if it's a family member, they're going to stay in your life, so it's fine. And they'll still love you no matter what. They're not going to desert you. And if they do, then they weren't worth it. And same thing goes with a friend. If they can't understand this, I saw this quote the other day that true friendships withstand time, distance, and there was one more. If you guys know the quote, it was so good. But the time and distance really hit home for me because my best friend, like if we go, I shared this earlier this month. She was overseas. She's back now, but that distance, it doesn't affect us. And if we go a week without talking or we're both going through a busy season and we see each other like a month later, it's like no time has passed. That's a true friendship. That's someone that doesn't demand things of you and doesn't eat up your time. One quote that I heard, and I hope that you can take this to heart. Life is short. There is 52 Saturdays a year. Don't waste one on shit that you don't want to do. That, my friend, is your villain era. I hope you feel empowered after today. Stop apologizing for who you are and the things that you want and what you want to do and how you want to spend your time. And go start living your freaking life. Seriously, to your standards and to your expectations. Don't drop the standard just because somebody else might want you to, or they have a demand placed on you. Go live life the way that you want to freaking live it, and go make the ish happen that you want to make happen. Cool? We are almost halfway there. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, dudes.